Today in Harvard Square, we're visiting a site associated with William Henry Lewis. William Henry Lewis was born in 1868 in Virginia. His early education proved him to be of exceptional academic capability, and a mentor urged him to apply to Amherst College. Every boy there was required to choose a physical activity, and Lewis selected football, a sport with no African American players at the time. While playing for Amherst, Lewis proved exceptional once again. Despite the unprecedented nature of a black man playing football, he was named to the All-American team in 1890, becoming the first black All-Star in the history of the burgeoning college sport. He would be an All-American the following year as well, having also been voted captain of Amherst's team. After also winning oratory and debate prizes, he graduated and headed to Harvard Law School. Eligibility rules in those days allowed law students to play football, so while attending Harvard Law, he would play football for the Crimson. Once again voted captain, he was forced to remain on the bench more than once due to objections made by opposing teams to sharing the field with a man of color. His team would repeatedly rally around him, finally refusing to take the field without him. Upon graduation, he began a private law practice, but Harvard would not let a genius of the sport go so easily. Hired as an assistant coach in 1895, his expertise made him the most highly respected member of the coaching staff among the players. In 1901, at a salary of $500 a year, he would become the first paid football coach at the Ivy League school. The salary was doubled 2 years later as Harvard would win 3 national championships under his tenure. After Harvard's 1899 championship, he was offered the head coaching position at Cornell. After a talk with his friend, fierce Crimson fan and governor of New York, Theodore Roosevelt, he declined the position to stay in Boston. Roosevelt and Lewis would become more and more friendly, with Lewis taking a trip to stay with the Roosevelts just a month after the latter's nomination as vice president in 1900. When Cornell renewed their offer in 1903, the now President Roosevelt made sure he would stay in Boston. He advised the U.S. Attorney in Boston to appoint Lewis the Assistant U.S. Attorney for the area. At the time, this appointment was the highest government position ever awarded to a black man. That same year, he would preside over the meeting that came to be known as the Boston Riot, calling police to arrest William Monroe Trotter for his repeated interruptions of Booker T. Washington's planned speech. Trotter would later be defended by Lewis's law school classmate, Clement G. Morgan. Presiding over the opening of Harvard's new football stadium in 1903, he had become a national authority on football, with some even naming him as the foremost expert on defense. When Charles Eliot threatened to ban the sport in 1905, after too many fatalities on the field, it was Lewis who proposed a neutral zone around the line of scrimmage. The forward pass was also made legal with these new rules, and the game was much less deadly after the scrums were made irrelevant. Lewis, a proponent for the ferocity of the game, would remark somewhat sarcastically, "The new game is a safe, sane, and wholesome sport." Finally, Lewis left his position as coach at Harvard when Roosevelt promoted him to the position of chief of the Naturalization Bureau for 6 New England states, putting him in charge of immigration. He held this position from 1907 to 1911, when the new president, William Taft, would promote him to the prestigious role of Assistant U.S. Attorney General. This would be the highest government position held by a black man for decades. Southern newspapers were outraged by the appointment. The American Bar Association had received Lewis's application the same year and granted his acceptance, unaware of his race. When the appointment was made and his race came to light, they demanded his resignation, accusing him of having tricked them. When he refused, a national campaign to oust him was organized. Members of the Southern Bar successfully ousted him in 1912. In response to this injustice, he sent out a call to the black community to train and form an army of Negro lawyers of strong hearts, cool heads, and sane judgment. He would continue to serve at this post until the end of Taft's presidency in 1913. Afterwards, he became a vocal advocate for the African American community in a time of increasing violence towards them. He would criticize the Northern response to Southern lynchings and the stalling out of the Northern abolitionist movement. When a black man was refused employment in Boston based on his race, he told a crowd of Unitarians that if he owned the company, he would force the blackest man in Boston in there. While the white crowd applauded politely, the black waiters serving them roared their cheers of approval. From football legend to civil rights activist, Lewis's career was influential in many circles. He died in 1949 and was buried in Mount Auburn Cemetery.